I'm going to go ahead and get started. We'll have people joining as we go, but I know we're eager all to get started. So thank you all for being here today or this evening or whatever time of day it is, the part of the world you're in with us. I'm Allison Kaczynski with the STATV2 Gene Foundation. I'm pleased to be joined with two of our fabulous parents. We have Bill and Terry Reagan, who are parents of Lindsay, who is 31 years old. We also have Stephanie and Todd Watkins with us, who are parents of Noah, who is 23 years old. And so what we're going to do this evening is just have a conversation about what is life like raising and having gone through and raising to also advice that they have for younger parents and open conversations. So if you guys have questions or comments, just feed them in the Facebook comments and I'll have those going throughout the evening. So I'm going to start off by passing it off to Bill and Terry to introduce themselves and let us know a little bit about Lindsay.
Hi, I'm Bill Reagan. I've recently retired from the University of Buffalo, where I spent 39 years working. I'm pretty much with this COVID experience home quite a bit. Lindsay's been home quite a bit because her day program has been paused, and Terry's doing a little part-time work helping with online instruction for a couple first graders.
So he's the hands-on dad for most of the day these days. So it's been pretty hard the past few months just because she's pretty bored, right? We do a lot of FaceTime. She hasn't been able to see her beloved boyfriend, Mike, very much. And so it's really kind of ticking her off. But
yeah, you know, as I think most parents of STATV2 kids have come to experience, they are really, they love structure. They love to be able to anticipate what's coming next. In fact, they look forward to those kinds of things. So when your daily habits and programming are disrupted, they suffer. It really is beguiling for them.
Great.
And just a little bit of history about our life with Lynn's. We just found out recently, 2 or 3 years ago, her diagnosis. Up until that point, we had every other genetic test and brain scans and MRIs. And up until 2017, we just knew she had a developmental disability and she couldn't speak, but we didn't really have any reason for it. So we just kind of were trailblazing on our own. She went to public school, was mainstreamed some parts of the day, but also got instruction in a self-contained room part of the day.
OT, PT, speech therapy through the schools. She participated in the school system through the age of 21.
Right.
And then from that point till now, she's been a client of People Inc., which is a kind of social services agency in Western New York and the Rochester area, quite large. So she's been very fortunate to be, integrated into some really fabulous organizations.
Can you say hi to everybody?
Hi.
Hi, Lindsay. So good to see you this evening.
So we've been having some behaviors. We just started an antidepressant, and because she's really kind of not herself these days, but one day at a time is all we can do.
Speaking of medications, this is something that we did quite a while ago with the vicissitudes of the female hormonal cycle. She's been on
birth control for a long time, and we just keep her on it every month. Like, she doesn't skip her or she doesn't, use the placebo pills. We have a family member who's an OBGYN who said that there's nothing wrong with just staying on. So she really doesn't get much of a period, if at all. So that's something that has been a godsend. If anybody else is having problems with that, we're very lucky she no longer gets it. So what else can we answer?
What about Noah? Let's hear a little bit about Noah, and I'm sure more will come up about him.
Yeah, so we're a little different situation. Noah moved into his group home right at his 19th birthday, right about his 19th birthday, and he is 23. So we started having, like, Noah's childhood. He's the oldest of four. Our kids are all very close in age. We have 4 kids in 5 years. So we just kind of drug him to everything the other kids did. We didn't treat him any differently. We were actually watching old family videos, and Noah would be really always grabbing and pushing and touching, just really aggressive and physical with our other kids. And, we disciplined him for that. We had expectations of him having, typical behavior. And he did really well until.
And when he was small, that stuff, wasn't so significant.
Yeah, I mean, he was bigger than his siblings, but he was a kid, right? And he didn't really have any meltdowns. He would get stubborn. He would get, we had the patterns that I see a lot on Facebook of lining things up and wanting to move all the furniture and the chairs kind of in a line. And, but once he hit puberty, we really started to see kind of this breakdown with him. Just getting more and more difficult to manage his behaviors. Just impulsive, a lot of impulsivity, and what's the word? Just perseverating over things that he couldn't have before. Even now, I just almost never can take him into a store. He's obsessed with anything babies. So the last time we were having a great day, we had lunch with one of his old staff members. Fantastic day. He was in a great mood. And I was like, okay, I have to go to Target. We can handle this. So we go to Target. He runs off, and I used to chase him, and I'm like, you know what? I'm in the grocery section. You know where I am. I thought, let's see what happens. It's kind of scary. He's nonverbal. He comes back with a stroller, an umbrella stroller, throws it in the cart, comes back 5 minutes later with a bike, $110 kid's bike. I buy it and I return it later. That's my method, right? But that's kind of when we have Noah. So we have him usually a couple weekends a month. But it is all hands on deck. Our weekend revolves around somebody has to be right with him every second. But in his group home, they never see these behaviors. Yeah. Never see them. He is happy. He loves going. When we take him and return him, he is very happy to go. He lives with 3 other right now, 2 other young men. The house is always fully staffed. Because of his behaviors, he gets a one-on-one. So we just feel for him. I thought it would kind of be temporary, but I'm seeing he really likes it there, and it's a great setup for him. And we love him dearly, and he's a huge part of our family. He's, one of us, but it was so hard on the rest of our family, and him being the oldest with 3 other kids here, he was getting aggressive with me, and it was just putting such a strain on everyone else in our household. So kind of a note to parents out there that are afraid of that in the future. I was petrified. I was not in my plan at all that he would ever move out of our home. In fact, I threatened to divorce him over it at one point. I said, well, Noah and I will go live in an apartment. Then when I realized Noah would probably kill me if we did that, I decided that wasn't a good idea. But just don't be scared of it. It's worked out, and it's not a perfect agency. There's no perfect agency, but they really are trying, especially through COVID. I've been so impressed with how they're really trying to still have the guys be able to see their families and keep everybody safe and find a balance. And
the fact that he doesn't fight going back really makes us happy. And sometimes when we have him for a couple nights, he'll start to show us pictures on his iPad of his housemates and his house and his staff and whatever. And so that's, a message to us that, hey, I'm ready to go home. And so that's really a good thing for us. Yeah. And,
we do find that behaviors that Lindsay exhibits at home with those of us who are familiar, family members, people on the outside, teachers, social workers, therapists, they don't see this. I mean, she is angelic. She is angelic for the most part, but she.
This is because he takes her every place she wants to go, which means okay, they go out for breakfast, they go out for. I mean, this has been COVID.
I think we go shopping.
Whatever he's at her beck and call.
Yeah.
We do that too.
Yeah.
I'm sure a behaviorist would say that's enabling, but life is just easier that way.
Exactly. It's like either you can fight about it or you can do it and just get it over with.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. We were going to bring Noah home tonight, and we're going to have him through Monday. We're going to get him tomorrow, and we thought about bringing him home tonight. And he said all he'll want to do is move cars in our driveway, like constantly, like put them in a line and then switch the line and then switch. And we'll be out there at like 2 a.m. He'll come get us and pull us outside. So he's like, let's just do 2 nights. We were going to do 3 nights, and we'll just do 2 nights. So.
These kids can perseverate, and they will wear you down. They will absolutely wear you down. So, it's just choosing the lesser of two evils. Ordinarily, it's you just let in and
you give in.
Right. So the behaviors, because that's a hot topic, right, among our families, and so has the behaviors always where they were a little bit more difficult with the family members versus, like you're saying, the schools and the therapists where they're more angelic. Has that always been that way, or did they kind of just into that?
Yeah, it's always been that way.
Yeah, for us too. With the school, when we would go to IEP meetings and tell them about this, they would think we were nuts.
Right.
You could see the looks on their faces, like you guys are just crazy.
Yeah. What are you doing wrong at home, right?
Right. Exactly. And then we eventually had some evidence and whatever, and then they finally believed us.
Right. We at one point brought a behaviorist in, and we were having meltdowns before Noah was going to a private school about 45 minutes, hour away. So it was a long bus ride. And he was getting up really early, and we were having he wanted to take things out of our house on the bus with him, a kitchen chair, printer one morning. I mean, weird things like, and he would get very physical with me if I told him no. And at that point, Todd was leaving for work at like 4 a.m. So I was alone. We were bringing in staff to help, people to help us. But we brought in a behaviorist, and he hid in our family room to try to witness this, because if no one knew somebody was in the house, he would never do those behaviors. The guy hid behind a couch, and no one knew he was there. He just sensed it. He knew he was there. And before I felt bags, the guy had to get here at like 4:45 in the morning or something. But we tried until we finally got some things on video. But then you kind of have to be careful with that too, right? Because you got to be careful who you show that to, because we would have to physically pin him.
Yeah.
So that has been the toughest, but his behaviors are less physical. He gets very agitated, and right now his worst behavior is like when he gets angry, he'll try to break something. He'll want to rip something off of a car, or but he hasn't gotten physical towards either one of us in quite, I would say, a year or more.
But he's on some meds.
But he's right. We're balancing meds, and we're trying different meds, and I think we're kind of finally hitting a good combination of medications. So
yeah, we
haven't found that yet.
Well, we enlisted a child psychiatrist, early this year to
we finally found
help us with these coping strategies. Absolutely.
So far she's on an antidepressant every day, and then he gave us a beta blocker to give her when she gets upset, which is supposed to kind of make her her blood pressure go down. It kind of calms your body, which it kind of works a little bit, but just very temporarily, Yeah,
the problem is once she's into one of these blow-ups, it's too late. It's too late, and you can't play a guessing game. And
so Noah is on a daily dose of Zyprexa or olanzapine. And I'm trying to get him off of it. I work in the field, and I know, when I would have to go into visit clients, one of the things you look for is the tardive dyskinesia and the different that they can have almost stroke effects. So long term, I want to get him off of it. So we're increasing his Zoloft, and we're seeing a big improvement in him. Actually, coming back around to more of himself in a lot of ways. Like he colored and then he stopped coloring for a long time. Now he's back to coloring. And I really think the Zoloft has helped his anxiety. He's starting to like be able to just relax and settle. So the goal is to get him off the daily Zyprexa, but we have a PRN. It's like a 5 milligram. It's a dissolvable under the tongue, a fast acting. So when we see one of those episodes coming on, if we give it to him at the right time, usually within
2 minutes.
2 minutes, he's calm. It calms him down. So that might be something. I don't know if it would be good for her or not.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But
It's such a balancing act, and I think, you know, for us as parents, we have to be their advocates. We have to know that it's okay to tell our doctors that it's not the right thing, or that advocate for what we, you know, what we've heard from the other STAPI2 families that's working, and convince our doctors to try those things. And so I would encourage all of our families to always ask questions in our closed Facebook group. We've got a wonderful support system, and to always feel like that they can advocate and request different things, because it sounds like it's a trial and error. What may work for a while will eventually perhaps stop working, and then we have to advocate for to try something else to help our children.
I think the thing that scares me about the mood stabilizing medications is they make people feel very different all the time, right? Like they have, you know, like a lot of side effects, and our kids can't tell us how it's making them feel.
Right.
And I don't know a lot of people that are verbal, that are more typical, that can tell me that are on Zyprexa, that can say, here's what makes me feel. But because of my job, I was able to kind of hear people tell me, I hate being on this medication. It makes me feel tired. It makes me feel lazy. It makes me feel, you know, all these things. And so we have a psychiatrist now who I feel really listens to that. Like when I talk to him about my concerns about the long-term effects and how it makes him feel on a daily basis. So I'm really happy we kind of switched around for a while, and we found a guy who really listens. Now he comes to me with, oh, there's this natural remedy that I think we should try. I've been reading research about. So he's you know, kind of understand. I feel like he's understanding where I'm coming from. So
we have a question on our Facebook. Does the behavior seem to get worse when they start going through hormonal changes such as puberty?
I want to go first.
She used to be manageable.
It was so long ago.
Ours seemed to be a very noticeable change. I mean, that's kind of was the onset for us of the.
I would agree.
Behaviors.
That's certainly what I feel like we hear, that when the puberty onsets, that's when behaviors start to get to definitely peak for our children. So. Great. Well, so tell me about communication. So I see Lindsay's got her AAC device, and she's, you know, already said hello to us. Bill and Terry, can you tell us more about how she communicates with her device, and kind of what that journey was to finding the right item for her?
Okay, so when she was like about 5 or 6, they started her with the Cheap Talker, which is just like 4 squares. And you record your voice, and then they put like PEX symbols on it or whatever. And she really liked that. So she would go through all the symbols and like try and put them on. And so then her speech therapist, when she was 7, said, I think she could really use a device.
We thought she was out to lunch.
Yeah, we were like, no, she can't, you know, there's no way. But so the way we programmed her talker is we just, whatever interested her, we would put on there. So it started out with, she'd like to talk about people. Now we have this kind of monstrosity of it's got a zillion things on it. All the people who are ever in her life, pictures of them, customized like searches for clothes or places to eat, verbs. Unfortunately, her device is no longer being serviced. So, and the platform that it's on is no longer convertible to another device.
Like Snapcore.
So we are going to be, I've been buying her device on eBay and everything else, just so that I can have a bunch of backups. But someday in the near future, I'm gonna have to start from scratch again and add back all these people. So I guess my word of caution is to people, however wonderful customization is, in encouraging communication, it's also, we realized that maybe we shouldn't have done it that way. Maybe we should have just used what they gave us, which was on this page, our, you know, the problem was, you know, the searches that they would give you would be like all the animals. It would say arachnid, antelope, every single animal that you ever, you know. And we just wanted to have like a smaller set and then grow as she grew. So we did it all custom. And now we're kind of like, eh. So if anybody's a computer programmer out there and could take our device and turn it into a 2020 device.
But what's remarkable in this process, Terry did most of the programming and probably led the core of speech therapists that Lindsay has had in succession over any number of years. But this today, you know, there are thousands of buttons, you know, we call them buttons, that, you know, have these communication capsules in them.
And she remembers
she knows where everything
is.
Everything.
And even when I think to myself, oh my goodness, I forgot that was on there, she will find it like that.
And she's, you know, if our friend Steve is on there with his picture and we need another Steve, that's a vocabulary item for her. So she just goes to the Steve she knows to be able to say Steve to this new person whose name happens to be Steve. So it's all pretty good.
She also does signing and she pulls you around, but her signs are very
Right. Yeah, she's smiling.
approximate. But I mean, the reason I took ownership of the device was because she had a million speech therapists. I think one time I counted, she had 14 different speech therapists. We just get them to where we wanted, and then they'd have a baby and somebody else would come in. So I always wanted to be the one adding things, so we didn't have to rely on someone else.
Stephanie and Todd, how about Noah? What is his communication method?
So I think we have both felt like failures over the years because Noah, like I said, he ended up in a private school that was supposed to be one of the top in the country on communication. And we've never gotten him to really successfully use a device. I think he doesn't like the attention it draws, the speech output. He tended to shy away from them. He at one point had a device that was called a Tango. They made it for, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years. It was a dad of a son with autism, and it was this little long thing, and it had like 5 or 6 slots in it. And it had a camera. I mean, you could change them. It had a couple layers. That was the only device where I think he actually owned it and saw it as his voice, and it really worked. But his main way of communicating is photographs. He likes to retell stories, everything. And Noah does not forget a single memory. I mean, I think you're every event in childhood. So I think a lot of times his frustration is his trying to relive or retell us about something.
And we don't get it.
And we don't get it. Yeah. So, but he uses his pictures a lot, and he carries his iPad with him everywhere. He FaceTimes us. Like, probably I'm missing calls now. I will have like 500 FaceTimes from him tonight. And he'll just sit there and listen. He points and gestures. He does quite a few signs. We had a guy working with him for years. He would come to our home a couple times a week and do signs with him. And it wasn't all this therapy, all these years of schooling. And this man realized that Noah had access, as primary his pointer finger, a little bit of his thumb, but these 3 fingers work as a unit for him. Yeah. So for him to try to sign, and I don't know how common that is with other kids, but these 3 last digits, he can't isolate them. Yeah. Can't separate them out. So we started to modify, but this man helped us come up with like signs for all of his siblings. So now Noah can tell me his brothers are really tall, so this is one of his brothers, and his sister. So I'll be on with him on the phone, and he wants to see his sister, so he'll just sit there and rub his cheek raw. So I mean, he has his way. He gets his message across. But I know he's frustrated a lot.
We went through lots of staff changes also in schools and different approaches and all kinds of things. And I would say, I think in every single IEP meeting, because they want to talk about, you know, can he match and can he start to do math? And
Can you spell his name?
I said, look, what limits Noah's world is his lack of ability to communicate.
Yeah,
We
exactly.
should stop focusing on any of those other things you're talking about and work on communication 100%. And I never successfully got them to do that, right? Because they always wanted to check the boxes about,
Right.
you know, starting to match and things like that. And that's not what limits his world. His world is limited, in my opinion, by his ability to communicate. And so while I was unsuccessful about that, I would suggest that people continue to strongly advocate for the communication training, because I think that's what makes the difference or not.
And Allison, I'll try to get you some information, but Terry, I think since Lindsay is probably solely on Medicaid, correctly? That's what covers her supports and services in New York is for Medicaid.
For her programming and stuff,
So-
she still has our regular insurance as well, but her
Medicaid
programs.
typically cover devices.
Right, absolutely, they do.
Okay. You want to make sure you're getting yours covered.
Oh, yeah.
We have a very fancy, I forget what device we have for Noah. We decided, we took it to the beach with us because since he's in a residential home, I thought, well, every time he's with us, I'll just keep working with him on the new device and see if I can get him to accept it. And so we were at the beach for a week, and Noah is obsessed with taping things to our car. He wants to tape everything to our vehicle. So Noah wanted to tape this $5,000 device to the outside of our Suburban. So I mean, I haven't brought it out since. Like I haven't even tried it with him. So
This is an iPad and he likes that for the pictures, and he knows it so well. Like, he's so capable of using one. He knows where to keep his finger for the screen before it gets there. Like, he knows where the button is in the next screen that he wants to show. So he's got the capability. He just chooses not to use it as a communication device.
Right.
Yeah, Lindsay knows where every photograph is. I've got thousands of photographs on my iPhone. Terry's got photographs, and she'll be looking through those all the time.
Yeah, and with her talker too, when she's scrolling through the pages, she's got her finger, because she knows, like, it's at the top of the page that the next screen is going to be.
Knows where to go.
Regarding the, the IEP meetings and stuff, I said this during the conference, but I felt the same way that you did about forget the rest of the curriculum until she has a way to communicate. She's not going to learn anything. And I found out from a substitute that a different school district, kids were getting speech therapy 19 times a week. 19 times. So that's like, I don't know, how many hours? Almost 10 hours a week or whatever.
Like Sarah.
So we went back and forth. She's talking about her boyfriend. Oh, her boyfriend, Sarah, is his speech therapist. We went back and forth and settled on 15 sessions. But some of that time was not direct service time for her. Some of it was for the speech pathologist to have time to plan. Because obviously, if she's in a regular school setting, there's nobody else with a talker. The speech therapist works on people with articulation. So this will give her time to either meet with the teacher and find out if Lindsay had vocabulary on there that she needed, or just to be in communication with me. And I volunteered to be the parent member on the committee for special ed years and years and years, just so I could get my way with them.
We were also involved as officers of the special education PTA, throughout the school.
Yeah, just to get our
Just so we were
trying to kill them with kindness. So, but sometimes it wasn't kind. We'd have these, meetings that they didn't agree to stuff, and we just kept pushing. We never had to bring in an attorney or anything like that, thank God. But I think we got the better of them, shall we say. And, you know, Lindsay had a good school experience. I mean, granted, she took ceramics probably 5 years in a row, but she has friends now that, she sees in the neighborhood and
Like
they
clay.
know her. Like clay.
Yeah,
Yeah, ceramics.
her sister, she has two younger sisters. They all went through the same school system. So, her sister's friends all know who Lindsay is. And, that's a very comforting feeling to know that she's part of a community where she's known and, people aren't afraid to say hello to her and, vice versa.
Well, and I think
That's what we ended
that's
up getting.
sorry, I was going to say the sibling relationship is always a conversation that comes up a lot. And Stephanie and Todd, your children spoke at our conference
Oh, that was
2 years ago, and that was so well received. So kind of talk to us about that, about the sibling relationship and kind of growing up.
So we tried hard not to. We tried hard not to let Noah's disability kind of rule the family as much as we could. I mean, to some degree, you don't get a choice, but we tried hard to not do that, and we didn't. Stephanie, this was mostly due to Stephanie. She took our kids everywhere. There was never an opportunity that came past us that she didn't try to take advantage of for our kids, and so they did all kinds of things, and Noah would be there in tow. Just going along with it. And so, we just worked really hard on that, particularly Stephanie. She gets all the credit for that. That she just made sure that all of our kids got to have as typical lives as they could, and didn't miss out and weren't sitting like all day long in doctor's offices and things like that and whatever. And so our kids had very, very fulfilled lives from that. And I think because of that, I don't think we see resentment in our kids of Noah, and I think that that's largely why.
We were fortunate when Todd and I were newlyweds. We were youth pastors at a church, and there was a family that had 2 kids, and one had a very severe disability, wheelchair bound, and the other son was in our youth group, and he was so angry. So we met him right at the time that we had Noah. So it really opened our eyes to kind of, okay, we want to be very cautious not to do this, whether we have one more child or, more children, we have to balance it in a way that they're not going to have that resentment. And now our son just came back from Ohio. He's married. And, one of the first things he did was go take Noah out for lunch. And then he called a local, quarry, and asked if over Christmas he can come and pick up Noah from his house and take Noah to the quarry to see these huge, I guess they have like these gigantic trucks, and what are they, like dump trucks? And, so he told me, he's like, yeah, I'm sitting in my apartment in Ohio and I'm thinking, what can I do with Noah during COVID that would be fun? And I'm like, who thinks of that? But Noah's obsessed with vehicles.
Yeah.
So he's arranged it for Christmas to take him. So we're excited to start to see our kids are all in their early, late teens and early 20s, and to see them, he's always in their thoughts. Like they think about him all the time and they want to do stuff with him. They want to help us. So it's very comforting as parents to know that when we can't do it, we feel like he's going to be taken care of.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Lindsay has 2 younger sisters, and I think she is insisting on FaceTiming Darcy, who lives in her own house, every day. And our youngest one, over this, past almost a year now with the COVID, has been living at home, working from here. So they've managed to rekindle a relationship. It's a different relationship now because she's an adult, and she's trying to figure out a new relationship with Lindsay, which is really healthy. It's one of the blessings of this COVID period that they're kind of rediscovering or discovering really for the first time how to be compatible adults.
And it's great for us because we get to go out. If she used to live in New York, and then when COVID came, she came back home. So
One of the dynamics we have to be careful of now, and we have to remind each other, is that, Stephanie and I are triggers for Noah, right? and probably more than anybody else in his life. And so it's easier if we are places when we have Noah with other people around, including his siblings. And so we have to be really careful of not, kind of putting a guilt trip on them to be around if they want to be doing something else. And we constantly are having to remind each other of that, to say, hey, it's great if they want to be there, but there's no pressure for them to do that.
Right.
And so we easily fall into that trap.
Yeah.
I think the hardest part for our youngest son, he's been around the most when there's been extreme behaviors, and he's had to at times hurt Noah to get him off of me, because he's gotten very aggressive with me. And so I would definitely say that I wouldn't doubt if there isn't some PTSD there.
Yeah.
So I think it's been the hardest on him, but he doesn't seem to have any resentment. They all seem to understand that they just can't control it. They can't help it. But there is this, like, he doesn't want me alone with him. So there's this anxiety there that I see with my youngest son that, I kind of look for. So
in fact, we did something terrible about 2 weeks ago. We love that new Geico commercial where they come on and say the house has a clogging problem, and they have the just up there and they're clogging. We just love that commercial. And so we were upstairs in our house about 2 weeks ago, and Adam, our youngest, was downstairs, and Stephanie said, do that clogging thing. And so I made
Noah for the night.
And we had Noah, and I made a bunch of noise on the floor, and he came running up with this look of terror on his face, like Noah was just beating the snot out of us, and we felt terrible.
I was panic attacking him. It was awful. So,
but talking about behaviors, one of the things in the group home, none of us planned for Noah to go to live in a group home, particularly at that age. But when the behaviors forced it, and when he almost probably if Adam hadn't been around, it probably could have seriously hurt or possibly killed Stephanie. This reaction Noah was having at one point, his meltdown. And so that's when I knew he had to go to live in a different situation. And as much as we didn't want that to happen, everybody's life improved in the situation, right? Ours did, although we felt a little guilty about that, but our lives improved, our other children's life improved, and Noah's life improved. Yeah. He was very bored at home, and he loves being in his group home. And so we were very pleased about that. And so for folks that are very reluctant to do that or scared about that, know that sometimes it works out and everybody wins in that deal.
Yeah.
Not always, but often.
Right.
Such great advice. I think parents, we carry so much guilt and the burden, but there is kind of that holistic picture to look at, like you're saying, and you have to kind of go with your gut and talk with other families and make the right decision. That's the right decision for you and your family. Not necessarily the right decision that, for the person next door. So great advice. We've got a great question on our Facebook stream. I'm going to direct this to Bill and Terry to start with. But as your children have aged, how do you keep them safe? Especially for Lindsay, how have you allowed her to have the autonomy of friends and boyfriends, but keep her safe from people that might harm her? What sort of safeguards do you have in place?
Well, she's basically, through her programming and with us, her constraints are she has to be within a visual, so when she goes to program, they can't let her, like if they're going to a store or something, they can't let her wander. She has to be within sight. Only if program is just one building, she can go to the bathroom by herself. But as far as her boyfriend, they kiss and hug. Not during COVID, we've kept them apart, but we are right there. And we do let them kiss a little because, she loves him, right? And, Bill's there to say, okay, kids,
Interestingly, the man of her life, unfortunately, was a drowning victim and sustained brain damage and is unable to talk himself. So it's just ironic that
they found each other.
They'll FaceTime one another. She'll say hi on her talker, and he can kind of grunt, hey, and there'll be this back and forth, hi, hey, hi, hey,
That's
hi,
their conversation.
Hey.
he has a talker, but he's able to type, and I think he's very embarrassed to use the talker, even though Lindsay uses a talker. He's more cognizant that he's different. So I think he's shyer about it. But keeping her safe, we've always, she, didn't ride the bus alone. She, we were kind of, because she can't tell you, So like Mike, her boyfriend, takes the public transportation. I'm sure she could do it. They pick you up and bring you, but.
Yeah, by bus, we're not, she took the school bus and.
Oh, yeah.
But she's not getting on the public transportation or anything like that.
It's always like a van from her program or something.
Somebody who knows who she is, where she's supposed to go, and is accustomed to dealing with kids with disabilities or young adults with disabilities. But it's to the questioner, it's
you never really exhale with
it's a
that.
tactical.
It's always
every day is a little bit of a tactical has a tactical element to be sure that there's going to be coverage, so to speak. There's a lot of baton passing with Terry and me, and lately with Therese, when we need to lean on her to be sure that somebody is around Lindsay or can be watching if need be. She doesn't need she's in the room watching TV. You don't have to have somebody watching her watch TV.
She's not going to do anything.
She's not going to do anything.
She doesn't wander or anything like that.
She doesn't try to cook on the stove or anything that could harm her. She'll eat like a horse and knows where all the secret spots are for snack food, but she's not going to get herself into trouble.
Stephanie, Todd, what about safeguards for Noah?
Noah has a one-on-one at his program, and so that's a built-in safeguard, although there's lots of staff changes. And so that's probably the biggest risk. And the reality is there's new staff all the time that we don't know. And maybe it's a bit sexist, but I think we don't worry quite as much because Noah's male as we would if Noah were female. But maybe that's just a naive approach that makes us feel better.
We try to get, we've asked the management, like anytime there is a staff change, that obviously as much training and ahead of time, but sometimes that's not possible, like especially with COVID, if they've got a cancellation, they have to get somebody in the house. It might not be someone that he's ever met before, which has been bothersome to me, but there's just not always something you can do. You can't always control that. But we call the house and we call the house number, and then we always give our cell and always try to get their cell number. And I always tell them, I tell them as much about Noah that I think, they can handle in short conversation. And then I just tell them throughout the day, call me if you have questions. And most do. I'll get a text or something asking, and I'll text them, because Noah's always had feeding issues and been on a feeding tube and isn't anymore, but still has issues with swallowing and chewing. And so we just want to make sure that he's safe in that regard. Noah has a tendency to sneak out and to wander off. So that's only happened once at his house. It happens on our clock quite often. He's really good at when he's with Dad, he'll come in the back door. So Todd thinks, oh, well, now he's with me, but then he'll go back out the front door and I think he's back with him, but he's down the street. So he knows, he's very smart about it.
Oh yeah.
And when he's been obsessed with these election signs, and he wants to steal them out of everybody's yards. So he'll try to get down the road to take, this lady had these two bright yellow signs and he had to have them. He just had to have them. So, after 15 minutes of searching for him, we see him coming running down another street that, he's got these two signs. So that's.
He appears to be nonpartisan, though. It doesn't seem to. Which is probably good because he could really get in trouble if he were partisan.
Yeah. So, our big thing, with staff and stuff is, when he did get away at his house, the guy didn't tell anyone. He didn't report it. He didn't. And so we asked for him to be fired, and he was. And we told the management, we said, if he had done all the right protocol and called everybody and let everyone know, we would have just wanted more training. We would just wanted to talk to him and tell him, because we know how Noah got out, and I know how sneaky he can be. It happens on our clock. So our big thing with staff is to try to keep that communication line open. We don't want them to feel like we're going to jump down their throat. But we also feel like FaceTiming him is a safety thing, because I have eyes in his bedroom every night because he FaceTimes me constantly. So, and they can't tell him that he can't. If I had a camera in there, we thought about setting up his camera on his computer so that it was on all the time, and we just weren't going to tell them. It's really a violation of privacy and not really allowed. But we don't need to do that because he FaceTimes us constantly. So I feel like we have a good idea of what's going on in his house quite often. So, the other recommendation, for folks that end up considering group homes, we love the fact that Noah's in a house with a group of guys that have mixed abilities. So he has a guy in there now who is really, really verbal. And when I FaceTime at night, usually he talks to me at least once every day. So I know what they had for dinner. All the things that Noah can't tell me, this guy can tell me. And he's always looking out for Noah. So I would highly recommend anyone considering the group home route, don't go to a home where like every resident is nonverbal. Try to go to a home where there's a diversity of disabilities, so that that is a safeguard in and of itself, right? Because you've got someone in there who can tell you what's going on, who isn't a staff member. So that's been helpful for us. So.
Great. Such great advice. So I'm just going to ask a few more questions. I know this topic comes up often, but what are some things that you've done to assure both Lindsay and Noah's financial well-being? Does anybody want to start with that?
Well, we have a special needs trust set up by an attorney. Just if people don't know, that's because when a child is eligible for Medicaid or whatever, they can only have a certain amount of money in their name. So after you pass away, in order to protect her inheritance, it would have to be in a special needs trust where the trustees could spend it on things for her, pleasure, basically. So, of course, you need to deem who's going to be the guardian, et cetera, right?
Yeah, so we have a life insurance policy, for example, that in equal shares goes to the 3 kids, but hers is to the supplemental needs trust, and her 2 sisters will be, trustees or able to, if it's go on vacation or she needs new clothes or needs a new iPad or whatever the case is, they can see to it that she gets that for her.
And it won't impact her, factor into
Her status as a
Medicaid
as a
recipient.
disabled adult child.
So
we're not quite there yet. We're in the process of setting up an ABLE account. So ABLE accounts are a great way also to take the money. In Maryland, our ABLE account, there is no Medicaid payback. So it's great because Medicaid can't come back after Noah passes and says, we're going to take part of it.
Yeah, so if you got rich relatives out there who want to give your kids money when they're adults, you got to school everybody. Hey, don't write the check out to Lindsay,
Right. Yep.
This is so important, and we did the foundation did a webinar on this exact topic this past summer about estate planning. So I encourage everybody to go to YouTube, find the Step P2 Gene Foundation channel. There's great conversations about that as well there. Stephanie and Todd, we had a question come in about group homes. This person's asking about mixed sex houses, male versus females, and the carers. Do you have any advice? Because you said Noah's in a home with all other males, correct?
Yes.
All their male residents, and then there's a mix of staff, male and female staff. I don't know that I don't know that it would bother us any if it weren't all male residents.
I don't know. Noah's very aware of his sexuality, very aware. So that was something through his puberty we really had to work on and had to just, it was a hourly, minute by minute when he was in the house, like for a couple of years, redirecting him to his bedroom, trying not to, I didn't want shame and I didn't want, but he needed to understand appropriateness and, not hugging his sister quite the way he was hugging her and all those things. He's very aware. When we used to try to hire staff that would come in our home with him, if it was, we'd have them come over and we'd interview them. And if it was a really pretty young lady, he would run to his room and hide. So we kind of had a difficult time, and I'm trying to tell them, the agency we were using, how about someone motherly? How about somebody, so he's very aware of it. So I don't know. I guess maybe I would be a little, it depends on the girl. I mean, I work in the adult disability world, and I would go into agencies and see like young women that were just fascinated with men. And so I probably would be a little more hesitant. I like that he's
right. But we also struggle about what's the right, what's right there. Should he just never have a relationship like that, or should he, or whatever? I mean, it's.
I guess I worry about it happening without me knowing, or no, you know what I mean? Like without, if staff isn't like watching and something were to happen, I mean, I wouldn't want Noah to be getting someone pregnant, or you know what I mean? Like, not that I think I don't know if he'd figure it all out. I don't know, but I mean, just being really real, I don't know how comfortable I'd be with that. I'm happy that his agency only does male and female homes. They don't have any mixed. The mixed staff doesn't, I like the mixed staff. I think he likes the female staff better than the male staff. He has a really cool young guy right now though with him at nights, and I think he's really liking him. But he tends to like the female staff better, I think. So.
Well, we're going to wrap up, but I want to end with a question for both of you guys. So knowing that a lot of our STAPI2 population skews towards the younger age, myself as a mother of a 6-year-old with STAPI2, what advice do you have to give to us to kind of reflect on the journey of raising our children, and lessons learned that you guys went through, not necessarily having the diagnosis for you guys early on, but just looking for advice for us as parents?
Well, one thing that I feel strongly about is that if you want your kids to have any kind of meaningful friendships, you really have to do all the work. You have to make the play dates. You have to be the one organizing, and it's definitely worth the reward. In the beginning, all the little girls are nice and they invite everybody to their parties, but then pretty soon it becomes apparent that they're not going to be friends with the typical kids. So I would say embrace the groups that you have. If you have a bowling league or you have a special needs dance class, and try and make friendships and facilitate them as best you can. And it just pays off in the end. I think we've been very lucky with not a lot of good friends, but you don't need a lot of good friends if you have a few good friends.
I think she's underselling. Lindsay has a cohort of friends.
Yeah, good friends. I mean, she does, but a lot of it is, kids in group homes who don't have parents in the area. We've done things. We're taking them out, and as a result, she does have a lot of friends.
I think on the other side too is, and this is something that I think comes up time and again, you got to advocate for your kids in any way, shape, and form possible. Join the special education PTA. Get to know the administration, get to know the teachers, volunteer. Challenger leagues, be the coach. Just don't let up in terms of leading the charge for your kid, because you're their most important ally during these formative years. And I know that's easier said than done. Not everybody's in a position to always dedicate that kind of time, but where you can, you just gotta go for it.
So I would say that there was this early in life, there was this strong pursuit of a diagnosis, right? And I'm assuming most of the people that are in the group here have gotten a diagnosis of SAPI-2. But just to remember that your kid is the same kid before you know what the diagnosis is as they are after the diagnosis. Now you just have a label. The one good thing is now you can join this group and be around others that that have a similar diagnosis and maybe figure out what the path is going to be like. But they're the same kid before and after you know that information. And
Yeah,
so
you're gonna love them no matter what.
right.
I think the advice I would give is like not to get too, like as you're thinking about the future and planning for the future, not to get too stuck on like one idea or this is how it's going to go. This is what it's. I think I did that. I had this whole plan. We live in a house that pretty much every change we have made to it, I've made sure that it's handicapped accessible. Noah's first diagnosis was a mitochondrial disease, so we weren't sure what that how that was going to progress and if he was going to be able to walk down the, and all those things. So we, everything to our home I tried to do, because my plan was this house would eventually be his, he would live here. I had this whole plan. So when the whole idea of group home, it just shattered my world. I wish I had been more open-minded. Well, it could go this way, or we could try this, like just to realize that there's lots of options. There isn't just one option, and to try to stay as open-minded as possible about their future. We don't know my typical kids. You have no idea your typical kids. Are they going to go to college? Are they not going to go to college? Are they going to, you don't know anything about their future. I mean, my son got married this summer at 19. I would have never guessed that, and he joined the Army, and he's an ROTC, and he's going to go into the Army. And I mean, the things that just, you can't plan your kids' futures, and you need to be prepared and do everything you can possible to be ready, but just don't try to make it too concrete, I guess.
And I want to add one more thing. So my other advice, maybe the biggest advice I would give, is don't let this disability or this child with a disability rule your world, right? Prioritize your marriage, right? Don't let this get between your marriage. And if you have multiple children, remember that this child with the disability is only one of your children. And so don't focus all of your attention and on this particular child or this one instead of your spouse or whatever. And don't let this rule your world to the exclusion of everything else in your world.
I totally agree.
Yep.
Yeah. I have your dates.
That is great advice, and I'm nodding our heads. I'm getting people on Facebook saying that they're nodding their heads during this whole conversation too, and I think just such wonderful advice. So we always have so many questions as parents of younger children. What's life going to be like? What can we do to better enrich our lives? But such important conversations you guys are sharing with us, and we really appreciate how open you guys have both been and willing to talk about the hard topics. I know there's a lot more hard topics to talk about, certainly, and we'll continue the conversation at another time as well. But I want to thank you guys for being here with us. Thank everybody that's joining us and watching on Facebook and asking questions. Be sure to visit the STAPI2 Gene Foundation page. Our website is satb2gene.org. We have lots of great resources that are always being added there. And if we don't have it, reach out to us. Let us know what we can do to help you guys as parents and families. And we will stay in touch. So Stephanie and Todd, Bill, Terry, Lindsay, thank you all for joining us this evening. And I hope you guys all have a wonderful night.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.